Hi, I'm Nick Palmisano, and this is the Bad News Network. Let's start off bright and happy. This week, University College London released the results of an interesting study. They showed that the European colonization of America and subsequent genocide actually cooled the environment and turned back global warming. Apparently all that pesky CO2 went away as soon as we got rid of farmland and, 55 million indigenous people. Thanks for that study, folks. I can't wait to hear from future Nazis and freaks using the environment as justification for mass murder. In better news, Israeli firm AE has announced that they're going to have a cure for cancer in 1 year's time based on their success with mice. I read a bunch of articles about the method, which is called mutatu, and despite all of that, I still don't understand it because I'm not smart enough. But short version, they basically have made a peptide that wraps itself around cancer cells and just gives it a little hug. Except it isn't a hug, it's more like a rear naked choke. And it chokes the cancer cell, preventing it from mutating, and boom! Just like that, cancer is gone and no side effects. Many scientists find these claims hard to believe, however, as all cancers are different, cancers work differently inside different people, and people are not mice. When asked for comment, AE responded, "Haters gonna hate. Also, can you please keep those London scientists away from me?" Chicago complained about the cold this week, and old-timers everywhere came out and said, "Cold? What do you know about cold? When I was a kid, we walked uphill to school both ways, and that's the way it was, and we liked it. How cold is it anyway?" "It's -50, Grandpa." "Oh, f***, that's cold. I'm going to Florida." Seriously? -50? That's a boy band name, a terrible B flick, or 50 Cent's kid's new rap album. That is not an acceptable temperature. Sorry, Chicago. Look at the bright side. It's probably too cold for murder. President Trump blamed former Speaker Ryan this week for not getting the wall built, and added on that all these hard drugs like fentanyl wouldn't be entering the country if Ryan had come through on the wall. Ryan replied that this is unlikely given that every place we've built a wall, people have managed to circumvent it using either a system of tunnels, drones, or speedboats. Furthermore, he stated 81% of all hard drugs come through legal ports of entry and not across our southern border. And finally, he added, "You, sir, showcase no conservative values. You are a pox upon this nation, and I regret ever having supported you." Just kidding, he didn't say any of that shit. He bitched out like he always does. Representatives Ocasio-Cortez and Markey released their Green New Deal plan this week. It involves, directly from the bill, using a combination of the Federal Reserve, a new public bank or system of regional and specialized public banks, public venture funds, and such other vehicles or structures that the Select Committee deems appropriate in order to ensure that interest and other investment returns generated from public investments made in connection with the plan will be returned to the Treasury, reduce taxpayer burden, and allow for more investment. That sounds nice. Just a brief reminder to you that democratic socialism is completely different from socialism. You see, in democratic socialism, the government issues new money with no backing to pay for the massive spending that it wants to undertake, while at the same time causing inflation, which reduces the value of money that people have currently. You then seize the means of production for pet projects and pump it up with government money, making it impossible for private sector competitors to compete, ultimately killing all competition and putting the government in the driver's seat on anything they want. In socialism, on the other hand, it's the same thing. It's the same f***ing thing. In Apple is Evil news, a 14-year-old boy figured out this week that if you try to group FaceTime somebody and they don't respond, you can still hear everything that they have to say. Not that anybody is really surprised, because let's face it, we've all seen The Dark Knight. And if you haven't, you're missing one hell of a movie. Criticism of Apple has been swift and growing after its slow reaction to the initial reports of the bug. In response, Apple has temporarily disabled group FaceTime and will be launching a patch early next week. So it might be worth postponing that sexy Super Bowl dance party until the Pats win and that patch is in place. Reports have surfaced this week of the most Russian of Russian disciplinary measures ever implemented. Quoting from a source, in October 2002, Captain Ilyasov was court-martialed in Yekaterinburg. He would regularly wake his soldiers in the middle of the night for a snap inspection. If anything was amiss, he would beat the perpetrators with a rubber dildo. When reached for comment, Specialist Vladichenko said, "I'm glad he's gone. I was tired of getting the shaft. The National Commission on Military, National, and Public Service released an interesting report this week. Up for discussion is a significant change to the selective service system. One of the more controversial proposals from the committee is to require women to also sign up for selective service. You know, equality, goose gander, etc. Another idea being pitched is the idea of universal service. Universal service would be a great opportunity for all Americans to experience the majesty of being voluntold to do something that maybe you're not that interested in doing. At the age of 18, you'd have the option of either joining the military, doing something like serving abroad in the Peace Corps, or serving domestically in something like the AmeriCorps. Separately, the Commission announced that 74% of all people surveyed couldn't name the 3 branches of government, and 71% of all young Americans are ineligible for military service. The chairman of the committee then said, "F this, I'm out of here," while the rest of the committee sat there alternating between crying and dry heaving into a used Wendy's bag. Adidas launched and then dropped their new shoe this month commemorating Black History Month. They drew immediate backlash because the shoe was completely white. When reached for comment, Adidas said, "Look, originally the shoe was black, but they were so scary that when we walked in them, people would cross the street just to get away from them, and we didn't really feel like we could bring them home to our parents without being judged." A Virginia Beach sailor is facing court-martial after being charged with aggravated arson amongst other things. The petty officer set fire to a container housing 900 urinalysis samples, including his own. Can you imagine being on that court-martial? If the presiding officer doesn't write, great motivation, fire for execution, piss poor judgment, then is this even America anymore? And finally, in Florida news. A Florida woman is in critical condition this week after giving a man oral sex in exchange for $5 and a can of Pringles. After completing the act that the Germans call Schlaben Sie Naben, the man demanded his $5 back. When the woman refused, he shot her in the shoulder. And I mean with an actual gun. She was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Her pride was transported in a separate ambulance and remains in critical condition. The officer in charge of the investigation stated, "Look, she should have known better. When Lincoln's involved, someone always gets shot." And with that, I'm Nick Palmisciano, and this is the Bad News Network. Our news is at least as bad as the news you're getting already, and go Patriots, let's get another ring.